And 12. 12,
Yeah.
too young. 13, too young. 18, too young.
Right. Oh, the age of consent in New York at that time was 10 years of age. It was astounding. Some of the research.
Incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And were the men ever arrested? Or did anybody look down on the men who took a young 10-year-old or 12-year-old in a brothel?
Well, I think a lot of it was kept quite secret.
Of course.
And it was part of the economy of New York at the time. So even if prostitution was illegal, the system itself, you know, in Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed and the whole way that the city had been run, it all fed each other. And so these brothels, because they serviced these men of importance, you know, were given a break where people looked the other way. The police force turned a blind eye and were often paid to do so. So it was, yeah, it was very much part of the economy of the city.
When you were doing the research and researching your grandmother and great-grandmother?
Great, actually.
Great. Yes, you're not that old.
Thank you.
So the great-great-grandmother. What shocked you about the times? Aside from the fact that men believed in the virgin cure.
Right. I think it was the gap between the haves and the have-nots. It was such a wide gulf between those who had, you know, a very nice living, had good homes, and also if you look at the distance between those two parts of the city, they aren't very far. It's a walkable distance. And so, you know, these people who had money in their families would often, either they weren't aware or they didn't want to be aware of what was happening in this other section of their city. And that to me was shocking.
Yes, the fancy carriage on one side and the homeless and the poverty struck, and we see it today. It's not like we should be so shocked.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, that was another reason why I chose to write this novel at this time, because I found that so many things, while we hope that they have changed, maybe haven't.
Well, as we watch what's happening here with, as I suggest, Occupy Vancouver,
Exactly.
and the essence of what it is, not what it's turned into.
Right.
Or, you know, the whole Occupy Wall Street movement, all of that, greed, the gap between the rich and the poor, all of the above. Where do you write?
I actually write in a studio that's in the loft of my barn, which sounds very pastoral, but it's finished out. It's a lovely space, and it actually overlooks the Bay of Fundy, and it's wonderful. It's a room of my own.
And are you disciplined?
Yes, I have to be. Yeah, if I wasn't, if I didn't go out and go to the desk every day and do my best to put in some hours, you know, I wouldn't get anything done. So.
And do you make up the title first, last?
It usually comes somewhere in the middle. You know, I've got the story, really, is the thing that has to catch my eye. It has to be the thing that I chase after, because I know I'm going to be, you know, it takes years for me to do the research and write a novel. So I really have to be enchanted with the story and the characters first, and then the title comes a bit later.
Sure. Well, I know as I'm reading it, I thought about getting out a placard. I thought, we're not there yet.
That's right.
You know, and certainly women have more advantage today, there's no question, but as you suggest, in sub-Saharan Africa, not so.
Right,
in
exactly.
Thailand, not so.
Right.
In Saudi Arabia, not so.
Right, and we are global citizens. I mean, this is our shared history, and I think that we can't forget that.
Right, and so much of women's history has not been written.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, it's still to come, and we have a hand in it, no doubt.
Before you started to write novels, you had an Oprah moment.
Yes, I did.
Now, how did that happen?
Well, it's actually, I blame my husband for it. He has always encouraged me to write. I kind of wrote, just personally for myself, had journals and short stories and so on, tucked under the bed in notebooks. And for the year 2000, he'd been encouraging me to make a New Year's resolution to write and to send it out to be published. Or to hopefully be published. And I was resistant to that. So I said, well, you know what I'll do? I'll make a wager. I will write thank you notes to people I don't know. And he said, well, it better be one heck of a thank you note and to somebody, you know, that is quite big. So it was Oprah. I chose Oprah thinking, I'll never hear from her again, and I will have fulfilled my promise to my husband. And then I can go back to quietly writing by myself. But within 48 hours, the phone rang. It was a producer from the Oprah show, and she said, I love the story that you told in your letter. I would really, Miss Winfrey would love to meet you. Would you come to Chicago?
What was the story? Do we have time?
Well, just long story short, when I had been teaching in Chicago. I taught high school in Chicago for several years, and I had been in a horrible car accident, and the students at the school had been assigned to come and help me with my laundry and dishes and so much while I was recovering. And it was just about the way that these young people had really helped me and held me up, and so it was sort of a thank you to them as well.
Just you in the car accident or others?
Actually, my oldest son was also in the car, but thankfully he was not a scratch. Nothing happened to him at all.
So that car accident and the Oprah moment.
Yes.
So you went to the Oprah show, were on the Oprah show or just heard from Oprah?
I was on the Oprah show.
On the Oprah show.
I wouldn't advise someone to do it. I did it backwards, right? I was on the Oprah show and then wrote a novel. I would say maybe
go
do it
the other way.
Yeah.
Well, and get Oprah to put that little stamp on the front, right? So you can be, well, I guess she doesn't do that anymore, but there was a day when if you were in Oprah's book club.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Hello. But Toni Morrison and, and Oprah are great friends, and I know you're a great fan of Toni Morrison.
Oh, she's one of my favorite writers, yeah.
So when you're writing, and you have kids?
I do, I have 2 sons.
Right. You bring out, I read this, I hope it's true, you bring out a Time magazine article with Toni Morrison on the cover.
That's correct, yeah.
Why?
Well, you know what? There's a story in that article talking about how when she had first put together the manuscript for The Bluest Eye, and it's sort of in this form, you feel like it's ready to go and it's going out to, the publisher to be looked at, to be considered. She had a young child at the time. The young child ended up spitting up all over that manuscript. And so there's a moment of
reality.
Of reality, yes, that author is going through things that everyone goes through. And so it made me feel like, if she can do that, perhaps, although I don't count myself as great a writer as she is, I can do that as well.
Well, the Toni Morrison talisman, whatever we call it, something like that. But she is a phenomenal writer. You're a phenomenal writer.
Thank you.
But do you feel like one? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I can read Ami McKay and think, I love this, I love how you write, you're a brilliant writer. How do you feel? It's just tough, even though you win awards.
Oh, yeah,
and lauds.
I think it's important to remember, at least for myself, that that's what I'm writing for. I'm writing for my own self. I'm writing to work things out, to discover things that I don't know, to try to make sense of things that are happening in the past and the present. So that's the first and foremost before all of the other stuff.
And what is it about Nova Scotia that draws you, that keeps you? Rural Nova Scotia.
Well, the people there are amazing, and the landscape is nothing short of inspiring.
And the characters.
Yeah.
The great characters.
There's a cadence in the language that's just musical and wonderful. I love it.
Very much so. So tonight, Vancouver International Writers Festival Insight Series with you tonight at 7:30 at the Vancouver Public Library. Will you be reading from The Virgin Cure?
I will, absolutely.
And talking about it, obviously.
Yes, and signing books and meeting readers.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
Thank
you so much.
Ami McKay, The Virgin Cure, and of course she wrote The Birth House, so you might want to read that first. And it's endorsed by the Chatelaine Book Club.